When you value yourself first, everything in your life begins to align in a way that commands respect. You no longer feel the need to explain your worth to someone who doesn't see it. Begging, chasing, or overextending yourself in relationships isn't noble. It's a clear sign that somewhere along the line, you've forgotten what you bring to the table. A man who truly understands his value doesn't beg for love, attention, or time. He knows those things are given freely by people who recognize and appreciate what he stands for. Self-worth isn't about arrogance, and it's not about playing games either. It's about knowing that you don't need to pursue what isn't meant for you. The moment you internalize that, you stop chasing people who run. You realize that begging for affection only puts you in a position of weakness. And the more you chase something or someone, the more they naturally pull away. That's human nature. We want what we can't easily have. And when you give yourself away too easily, when you constantly reach out, text first, show up uninvited, or plead for attention, you send the message that your time, energy, and presence are not valuable. What confident men do differently is they create space. So they allow people to come to them, not because they're playing hard to get, but because they understand their life is already full. Their purpose, their mission, their growth, they come first. And if someone wants to be part of that life, great. If not, that's okay too. When you start begging for someone to choose you, you start choosing yourself. That is where true strength lives. The culture today often teaches men to go after what they want relentlessly, especially in relationships. But what they don't tell you is the importance of discernment, of understanding when persistence becomes desperation. And once you cross that line, you lose respect, you lose attraction, and most importantly, you lose yourself. Because now you're operating from a place of scarcity, of fear, that if you don't chase, you lose the person. But here's the truth. If someone is only in your life because you begged them to stay, they were never really with you to begin with. You want to be the kind of man who walks away when he's not valued, not in anger, not with bitterness, but with clarity, because you understand this simple truth. Your time, your energy, and your love are not things to be handed out to someone who treats them carelessly. They're privileges, not entitlements. When you know this deep in your soul, it changes how you move. You don't initiate conversations just to get a response. Hey, you don't text 3 times to get a 1-word reply. You don't rearrange your life for someone who barely makes space for you in theirs. People respond to energy. And when your energy says, I value myself too much to beg, they notice. You may not get applause, but you will earn respect. And more importantly, you will protect your own dignity. That's something begging will never do. Chasing love that isn't freely given doesn't make it more meaningful. It just makes you more exhausted. You begin to tie your self-worth to someone else's reactions. And that's a dangerous game. So, stop negotiating with people about why they should treat you right. Stop asking for time, love, or effort. Either they offer it or they don't. Your job is to observe, not convince. Watch how people treat you and respond accordingly. A man who values himself doesn't chase, he attracts. And he attracts not because he's trying to, but because people are drawn to certainty, to self-assuredness, to confidence that doesn't waver based on someone else's opinion. This doesn't mean you stop being kind, generous, or emotionally available. It means you stop doing those things for people who don't reciprocate. You reserve your best for those who deserve it. And you walk away with your head high from those who don't. That's not ego. That's boundaries. That's emotional maturity. Every time you resist the urge to beg, you reinforce your inner strength. Every time you let someone walk instead of chasing them, you build character. And every time you focus on yourself instead of obsessing over someone else, you step more fully into the man you're meant to become. Remember, you are not here to audition for someone's affection. You are not here to convince anyone of your worth. You are here to stand in your truth, live your mission, and let the right people align with that truth without needing to beg for it. Silence, when used with intention, is one of the most powerful forms of communication a man can employ. In a world where noise dominates, where everyone rushes to be heard, validated, or reassured, the man who chooses silence stands out, not out of passivity, but because his restraint is rooted in strength. Especially in relationships, silence can carry more weight than 1,000 explanations. It shows emotional control, discipline, and most importantly, self-respect. When you stop texting constantly, when you stop filling the space with desperate attempts to reconnect, you send a clear message not just to the other person, but to yourself. That message is, I am enough. A confident man doesn't need to chase someone into responding. He doesn't panic when his phone stays quiet. He doesn't spiral into insecurity when he doesn't hear back immediately. He remains grounded, not because he's cold, but because he refuses to make someone else's attention the center of his emotional balance. There's a myth many men fall into, the belief that more contact means more control. They think if they just say the right thing, send one more text, or explain themselves better, they can change the outcome. But often, all this achieves is loss of respect. Neediness is never attractive. It doesn't draw someone closer. It pushes them away because no one wants to feel like they're being chased out of desperation. What people are drawn to is calm certainty, the energy of someone who knows their value and isn't afraid to let someone go if they can't recognize it. Silence, especially after disrespect or distance from someone else, is not weakness. It is clarity in action. You are not responsible for chasing closure. You're not responsible for dragging love out of someone who's withdrawn it. What you are responsible for is your own behavior, your own reactions, and your own peace. And sometimes peace looks like no reply, no explanation, no final attempt to fix things. This kind of silence doesn't come from playing games. It doesn't come from manipulation. It comes from emotional discipline. Choosing not to feed chaos, not to beg for attention, not to involve yourself in back and forth drama that serves no purpose. Because at the end of the day, if someone truly values you, they'll notice your silence. They'll feel the shift. And if they don't, then you've just gained your answer without even needing to ask the question. One of the most difficult things for a man to do, especially when he cares deeply, is to pull back and say nothing. But it's also one of the most transformative. It gives you the chance to observe, to evaluate, to breathe. Instead of reacting emotionally, you get to respond strategically or not at all. You regain power by stepping back. You let people show you who they are when you stop filling in the gaps for them. A man who lives with purpose doesn't have time for endless games. He doesn't send message after message hoping to get a breadcrumb of affection in return. He's focused on his mission, his growth, his path. And if someone wants to walk beside him, that person will show up without needing to be chased. Until then, he remains still, not passive, still. That's a different kind of strength, one that doesn't need to prove itself to anyone. Your silence teaches people how to treat you. It shows them that if they disappear, you won't go running after them. That if they take you for granted, they risk losing you, not because you're playing hard to get, but because you're already content within yourself. This kind of energy is magnetic because it says, I choose who I let into my life, and I don't negotiate my standards. And the beauty of silence is that it creates space for the truth to reveal itself. In that space, you get clarity about them, about you, about what you truly want. So don't fear silence. Use it. Embrace it. Let it speak for you when words would only weaken your position. Let it restore your dignity when emotions are pulling you to react. Let it be your boundary when someone tests your limits. You don't need to chase. You don't need to text. You don't need to explain yourself endlessly. You need to trust that your absence, when rooted in self-worth, speaks volumes. Let your silence become your strength. One of the greatest demonstrations of strength a man can show is knowing when to walk away. It's not easy, especially when your emotions are involved, when you care deeply, or when your pride is on the line. But walking away is not weakness, it's wisdom, it's power, and it's the ultimate act of self-respect. In a world that often rewards persistence in all the wrong places, the man who knows when to leave a situation that no longer serves him is the man who truly values himself. Walking away doesn't mean you didn't care. It means you cared enough to try, but you care even more about your peace, your time, and your energy. It means you're no longer willing to argue for your worth. You're no longer stuck in a cycle of trying to prove something to someone who refuses to see it. You're not desperate to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself. So many men get trapped in toxic patterns, trying to fix relationships that are broken beyond repair, chasing after women who treat them as an option, or holding on to situations where the respect has long disappeared. They stay because they're afraid of being alone, afraid of starting over, afraid of what it means to let go. But what they don't realize is that staying in the wrong place is far more damaging than walking away could ever be. When a man walks away from disrespect, he sends a powerful message. I will not tolerate less than I deserve. He's not trying to teach someone a lesson. He's not seeking revenge. He's simply preserving his own dignity. And dignity is something no one can give you. It's something you must decide to protect every single day. There is freedom in letting go. There is clarity in removing yourself from confusion. And there is incredible strength in refusing to chase what runs from you. When you walk away from games, manipulation, and emotional inconsistency, you give yourself the chance to rebuild your confidence, your peace, your identity. You step back into your power and stop living for someone else's validation. And make no mistake, walking away doesn't mean closing your heart. It means opening your eyes. It means recognizing when someone is no longer capable of meeting you where you are, emotionally or mentally. It's understanding that love is not enough without respect. Attraction means nothing without consistency, and words mean nothing without aligned actions. Sometimes the most masculine thing you can do is not to fight harder, but to stop fighting at all. Not because you've given up, but because you finally realized you shouldn't have to fight to be respected, valued, or seen. Relationships built on struggle don't become peaceful with time. They only drain you further. You don't build connection by sacrificing your self-worth. When you walk away, it might hurt at first. There will be silence. There will be doubt. Your mind may question if you did the right thing. But with time, you'll begin to feel lighter, stronger, more grounded in who you are. You'll see how much emotional energy you were pouring into a situation that was never meant for you. And you'll learn that losing someone who never truly saw your worth is not a loss, it's a redirection. A man who walks away from chaos creates space for peace. A man who walks away from disrespect makes room for love. A man who walks away from games becomes a man who cannot be played. That's the kind of man women respect. That's the kind of man others admire, not because he's heartless, but because his heart has standards, and he refuses to betray them just to keep someone around. So if you find yourself in a situation where your value is questioned, where your presence is taken for granted, or where you're constantly begging for the bare minimum, understand this. Walking away is not giving up. It's growing up. It's choosing yourself. It's stepping into the strength of saying, this is not what I deserve, and I will no longer accept it. Because the man who walks away is not the man who loses. He's the man who finally wins. Confidence isn't about chasing. It's not about constantly proving your worth to someone or begging for their attention. Confidence is rooted in knowing your value so deeply that you never have to explain it to anyone. And one of the clearest ways this shows up in a man's life is when he stops playing the emotional games, when he stops chasing validation from people who don't reciprocate his effort or energy. Because the man who is truly confident never plays the game, he stands above it. Now let's be honest, in today's world of instant gratification, endless texting, and social media-driven relationships, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking the more you chase, the more she'll value you. That if you keep showing up, keep texting, keep pouring into her, eventually she'll see your worth. But the hard truth is, when you overinvest in someone who underinvests in you, you don't gain respect, you lose it. And when you lose respect, you lose the very foundation on which healthy attraction is built. Confident man understands this dynamic. He doesn't overextend. He doesn't keep trying to fix what isn't broken on his side. He observes the energy being returned to him. He notices the patterns, the effort, or the lack of it, and then he acts accordingly. He doesn't waste time trying to win someone over who clearly isn't showing up with the same commitment. One of the most powerful things a man can do is stop playing the role of the pursuer in a one-sided connection. Because when you're always chasing, you're out of balance. You're reacting instead of leading. And you're teaching the other person that they don't need to contribute equally, that you'll keep showing up no matter how they treat you. That's not confidence. That's emotional dependency disguised as loyalty. Confidence says, I know what I bring to the table, and I'm not afraid to eat alone. It means that you are so grounded in your sense of self, you don't need constant feedback from another person to feel worthy. You don't need daily check-ins or a barrage of texts to feel secure. You understand that attention without intention is meaningless, and that someone genuinely interested in you won't need to be chased. They'll meet you halfway. So many men get caught up in the game of texting when they shouldn't, calling when it's clear the energy is one-sided, overanalyzing every small interaction, hoping to crack the code of what she wants. But the moment you stop trying to impress and start living in alignment with your own standards, everything changes. You stop being reactive and become intentional. You stop chasing and start attracting. That shift alone can completely redefine your interactions, not only with women, but in every area of life. The confident man lives from a place of abundance. He doesn't believe there's just one opportunity, one woman, one relationship that defines him. He knows that what's meant for him will stay without force. And if someone doesn't see his value, he doesn't lower his standards or chase harder. He lets them go, trusting that the right person will show up and respect the energy he brings. This doesn't mean you're cold, closed off, or unwilling to pursue what matters. It means you are no longer available for games. You're no longer emotionally discounting yourself to stay in someone's life. And it means you're finally putting your energy where it belongs, on yourself, your growth, your purpose. The man who walks away from emotional chaos isn't weak, he's wise. The man who refuses to beg for love isn't bitter, he's aware. And the man who stops chasing and starts building himself is the man women gravitate toward. Not because he's playing hard to get, but because he already has himself. There is a quiet confidence in choosing peace over drama, clarity over confusion, self-worth over desperation. And the moment you embrace that, everything about your presence begins to speak louder than your words ever could. Because when you stop chasing, you finally give others the chance to pursue you, and the ones who matter will. There's a powerful transformation that happens when a man realizes he doesn't need to be everywhere, respond to everything, or constantly make himself available. This shift marks the point where he begins to guard his time, his energy, and most importantly, his peace. And when he finally detaches from the need to always engage, to always explain himself, to always win someone over, he steps into a level of self-respect that's magnetic, because no confident man plays games. not because he doesn't know how, but because he knows he doesn't need to. You see, when you're rooted in who you are, you no longer fall into the emotional traps that so many men unknowingly get caught in. You don't reply to that text just because she reached out after days of silence. You don't break your rhythm just to accommodate someone who's inconsistent, and you certainly don't lower your standards to keep someone around. A confident man recognizes when something is inconsistent, unclear, or toxic, and rather than trying to fix it, he steps away from it. Not as a tactic, not to prove a point, but because he refuses to play a game he's already outgrown. The moment you stop participating in games is the moment you become dangerous in the best way. You become unpredictable, not because you're trying to manipulate outcomes, but because you're no longer operating from fear or insecurity. You're not afraid to walk away, you're not afraid to be alone, and you're not afraid to say no even to someone you care about if it comes at the cost of your peace or self-respect. Most men lose their power not because they're weak, but because they give it away, piece by piece, through constant compromise and emotional overinvestment in the wrong situations. They ignore red flags, they excuse bad behavior, they allow their standards to be bent for the illusion of connection, and in doing so, they become shells of who they were meant to be. But the man who stops playing games reclaims his time, his standards, and his clarity. He knows exactly what he wants, and more importantly, what he won't tolerate. You don't become confident by winning someone over. You become confident by staying true to yourself when it's hard. When emotions pull you one way, but your values pull you another. When everything in you wants to chase, but your self-worth reminds you to sit still and let things unfold without force. That kind of restraint, that kind of discipline is rare, and it's deeply attractive. People will test your boundaries to see what you'll tolerate, but if you're consistent in how you carry yourself, if you never flinch in the face of mixed signals, manipulation, or emotional games, they'll learn quickly that you're not someone to toy with. Not because you raise your voice or assert dominance, but because your silence, your absence, your refusal to engage in nonsense speaks volumes. Stop playing hard to get. It's about being hard to forget. And what makes you unforgettable is your unwillingness to betray yourself just to make someone else comfortable. The man who stays grounded, who walks away from what doesn't serve him, who keeps his energy focused on his purpose, that man doesn't chase, doesn't beg, and certainly doesn't play games. At the end of the day, your peace is your greatest power. Guard it like it's sacred, because it is. When you protect your energy, when you refuse to engage in cycles of confusion and drama, you show the world and yourself that you are enough as you are. No performance, no chasing, no manipulation necessary. And that's what makes you unstoppable. There's a rare kind of power that comes from living with purpose. It doesn't scream, it doesn't chase attention, and it never needs validation. Purpose is the compass that directs a confident man's actions, and when he's deeply connected to it, distractions naturally lose their grip on him. He no longer needs to prove himself through meaningless exchanges, emotional games, or by seeking constant reassurance from others, especially from women who don't genuinely value his presence. Instead, he becomes grounded in a vision far bigger than momentary approval. When you operate with a sense of purpose, your energy becomes selective. You don't give it to just anyone. You begin to see clearly that your time, focus, and emotional investment are resources that must be guarded. You stop tolerating chaos disguised as passion. You stop entertaining people who don't respect your path, and you certainly don't chase anyone who isn't aligned with where you're going. This doesn't mean you become cold or arrogant. It means you've become discerning. You've learned to say no to what pulls you off track. Most men spend so much time trying to be liked that they forget who they are. They adjust their behavior, their words, even their values just to gain the temporary approval of someone who doesn't even know what she wants. But the man with purpose doesn't fall into that trap. He's not here to convince anyone of his worth. His focus is so intense, so anchored in what he's building, that his silence speaks louder than any desperate action ever could. That silence, that distance, that calm, it's not indifference. It's discipline. This is where real confidence lives, in purpose, not in how many followers you have, not in how many women are drawn to you, and not in how many likes your words get. Purpose builds confidence because it gives your life structure. It becomes the foundation upon which your character is shaped. It helps you make decisions from clarity, not emotion. It makes walking away from disrespect easier because you're not just walking away from someone, you're walking towards something better. And the beauty of it is this: the more you prioritize your mission, the more naturally magnetic you become, not because you're trying to attract, but because people are drawn to someone who knows exactly who they are and where they're going. Women in particular can sense this energy from a mile away. It's not about being overly aggressive or aloof. It's about the quiet, unwavering confidence of a man who doesn't need to chase, because he knows that anything meant for him will align effortlessly with the life he's creating. Too many men get stuck in cycles of anxiety and self-doubt because they have no direction. They're constantly reacting to life, to texts, to women's moods, instead of creating a life so fulfilling that distractions no longer tempt them. When you wake up every day with goals that light you up, when your life is filled with passion projects, physical discipline, deep friendships, and meaningful work, you naturally raise your standards for who gets access to you. And that shift changes everything. Purpose forces you to become better. It demands your best. It keeps you accountable when no one's watching. It teaches you patience, consistency, and resilience. These are the very traits that create unshakable self-respect. And when you respect yourself at that level, you don't tolerate confusion, mixed signals, or being someone's second choice. You have too much to lose by entertaining the wrong energy. In a world that tries to pull you in 100 directions, purpose is your anchor. It keeps you grounded in your own truth. It helps you see through distractions that once held power over you. And it gives you the strength to walk away, not with bitterness, but with peace, because you know what you're here to do. A man on a mission doesn't beg, doesn't chase, and certainly doesn't waste time. He values peace over drama, clarity over confusion, and progress over temporary pleasure. When you live like that, you don't need to impress anyone. Your life speaks for itself, and the right people, especially the right woman, will see it and respect it, not because you played a game, but because you refused to